Well, Darin and Pat, thanks for being with us today. Really looking forward to visiting with you guys. It's been a while since I got caught up with you. Darin, I saw you a couple days ago. Pat, I haven't seen you in a while, but I thought a good way to start today was just talk a little bit about your family situation because I know they're changing a lot over the years, and some of the folks who haven't, followed up with you much here the last several years are probably curious to find it out. So, Darin, let's start with you first. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I have a wonderful wife, Libby, and then we have two now wonderful kids. Henry is 4.5 years old as of yesterday. Kind of jealous. He gets a Cinco de Mayo half birthday every year now, so probably be dangerous down the road a little bit. But and then we had a little girl, Olive, about 6 weeks ago on March 27th. So, very blessed, and we'll see how where life takes us from here. But we're planning on stopping it too, but we'll see.
Well, congratulations on your baby daughter there, Darin.
Thank you.
That is awesome. Pat, where are you at?
My wife Erin and I had our first boy 3 years ago, Dominic. He just turned 3, and then our daughter Ella is 1.5. She's kind of a little terror, doesn't really follow instruction too well, but we're making the most of this quarantine situation here and enjoying all the extra family time that we get when, usually springtime, we don't get a whole lot of time with the family. So this has been, really special to be able to have some good time with them.
This must be really a difficult time for you guys. You're used to going 100 miles an hour right now with your season. Spring training would have ended, probably about what, 5-6 weeks ago. You'd be, 25, 30 games into your seasons already. And here you are, at home waiting for basically the call for Major League Baseball to get started. Hey, Darin, since you've left, now you played at Creighton in, 2006 to 2009. So it's been 10, 11 years already. Tell us a little bit about what you've done since you've left Creighton and when you graduated after the 2009 season.
Yeah, so that season I was drafted by the Phillies, worked my way up through the minor league system. And in 2012, got a September call-up straight from AA. And then for the next 3 or 4 years, kind of bounced between the big leagues and AAA. And then the last 3 years, I've been playing in Korea in the KBO, which I think a lot of people are now familiar with in America if they didn't know before. But yeah, so that takes us up to this spring where I was with the Giants, San Francisco Giants, and hoping to make that team. So yeah, hopefully we get baseball kicked off soon and get rolling.
So Darin, that was your first spring training in the States in the last 3 years then?
Yeah, and my first in Arizona. I've been in Clearwater, Florida every other spring, so it was cool to get to experience Arizona spring training, which was really nice.
Great. Hey, Pat, now you played at Creighton from 2005 to 2008. Tell us a little bit about your travels since you graduated from Creighton. Around a little bit.
Yeah, I've had a few more stops. I wasn't on that fast track to the big leagues, that little 3-year plan that Darin was on. I had to wait a little longer. I was with the Yankees for 7 years. Never got called up with them, and then signed with Oakland. I was up and down with Oakland for 4 months of 2015. From there, I went to Toronto, was with them in Seattle in 16. 17 with Philadelphia, 18 with the Dodgers, 19 with the Giants, and now 20 with the Marlins. I am collecting a lot of those bags, a lot of those team bags you have. I'm working on about half the league here, so we're getting there.
Yeah. Now, tell me about that Seattle stop, Pat. That had to be an interesting one, huh?
It was great. It was a fun 6 weeks because that team was really firing on all cylinders when I got there, and there was a playoff push involved. And, up until the second to last game before the season, we were still alive. So, the stadium was packed. The games were high intensity. And, it was a fun 6 weeks for me. And, it's a great city and a great ballpark. And, it was awesome being able to be a part of that Creighton family there too. I think you know who the manager is there, but it was a good time.
Yeah, I ran into that guy a couple times. That manager there, First Metal. Well, one of the coolest moments you guys have both had, I think folks who follow baseball really enjoy. They enjoy hearing the stories about when you guys got the call to the big leagues. Darin, what's your story? What's your day? Can you recall it? I'm sure you can recall everything that took place that day.
Yeah, I definitely remember. It was we were in the playoffs actually in Double A, and it's actually the only time I've played in the playoffs in my professional career. So it was the first round. We just got knocked out by Trenton Thunder, and so we were on a kind of a down as a team from that, but within 15 minutes, the manager called me into his office and told me, that the team had taken notice of how well I'd been playing over the last month and a half, and so they were going to give me a shot in September to play a little bit. And yeah, so the whole atmosphere of the clubhouse really changed after that. Everyone was so excited for me. Bus ride back was a lot more positive than it should have been after getting knocked out of the playoffs. But yeah, it was an incredible moment. Packed up real fast, drove to Philly for the game the next day, and really cherished every moment with my family and my teammates.
And I'm sure you called mom and dad and
Yeah.
your wife as quickly as possible to inform them. So, did your folks get a chance to get to the game the next day, or did they have to wait a couple days to get there?
Yeah, they were not able to make it to my first game. They came later. We had some friends come down when I played in Houston, and they got to actually see my first professional at bat. I kind of just hung out for about a week or so with the team, which is pretty cool too. So, but to actually get in there, we had some friends that had come down from high school friends that come down to Houston, and they got to see my first at bat.
Yeah, that big league money's pretty good, isn't it, Darin?
Yeah. I mean, sitting there playing.
Pat, tell us about your day that you got called up.
There were quite a few obstacles that came with that call up. As if the 7 years before weren't enough. There was a bunch of flight delays and things that prevented me from getting to the stadium on time. But the night before, we had ended the game about 11:30. It went into extra innings, and I didn't pitch, which I thought was a little odd. But I didn't really expect the call up to happen because we had 4 guys on the 40-man roster in our bullpen, and that was the furthest thing from my mind. But we went 12 or 13 innings. It was real late. I was getting to my locker, getting ready to get changed, and I got called in. And I really didn't think it was a call-up, so I thought maybe I was in trouble. Maybe I had done something throughout the game because the game was on TV and there were microphones out in the bullpen. I was shocked, but the manager told me I was getting called up, and I had no idea that the big league team was in Boston, so I thought that was even a little cherry on top that I got to make my debut in Fenway. And I immediately went out. My wife was waiting for me outside the locker room, so I had told her first. And then, I called my dad and mom right away, was really waiting for that phone call for a long time. So that was a special phone call to make to them. And I ended up getting to Fenway Park the next day, not until about the second inning. And they don't have a separate entrance there for the players, at least one that's open once the game starts. So I had to walk into the main portion of the stadium with all of the other fans in about the second inning. It was on a Friday night, so it was packed. I had my big green A's bag, trying to convince the security guard that I was on the team. And then the locker room there is right next to the concession stands too. So it was quite the jaunt in there, and then made my way out to the bullpen. And about 4 innings later, I was in the game. So it was a little bit different than Darin, but It was almost a good thing though, because you didn't have too much time to think about anything. You just got thrown right into the fire.
No, it's yeah, that's a good one. Uh, Darin, the last 3 years, tell us of where you played. You mentioned it earlier that folks are probably a little bit more aware of this league now because it's on ESPN the last couple of days. How did that all work out where you got over there? What's the differences maybe between that caliber of baseball and what you were accustomed to playing in the big leagues? And you took your whole family over there too, so there was a lot of changes for you. Tell us a little bit about your experience in Korea.
Yeah, so going into that off season before I went over there, I had a feeling that my next stop would be somewhere in Asia, whether it be Japan or Korea. Just the profile I was, the type of player they wanted over there, from a foreign hitter's perspective, and the fact that I was out of options with the Phillies, so I thought it was perfect storm for things. So sure enough, they go ahead and trade me to the Dodgers, which I'm like, all right, that's fun. I'll see how far this takes me. And then sure enough, I think 3 days before Major League Spring Training started for the Dodgers, which was about halfway through spring training in Korea, the Samsung Lions didn't have a foreign hitter yet. So they contacted my agent and the Dodgers, and they worked out a deal to, allow me to come and play for them in Korea, which, I had to agree to too. And knowing that was what I thought I would do, it was a pretty easy decision. I talked about it with my family, and so yeah, I get over there halfway through spring training already. They've been working out for about 6 weeks already, and yeah, I get kind of thrown into the fire that in that sense. And first year I got off to a pretty bad start. My first month I hit, I think, 180. Got sent to the minors in Korea, which was kind of discouraging, but it was a good chance to regroup and refresh, and kind of just get acclimated with the country and the culture. Got called back up after about 10 days, and really played well from there. So that month and a half from getting over there to finally playing well, and then turning that into 3 years over there was pretty cool. Yeah, I know you asked like 3 more questions. I'll try to.
Darin, yeah, what was the hardest adjustment, and then what's the difference between that level of baseball and what you came from here in the States?
Yeah, so they have really talented players. As you have seen a few of them come over here. I think Pat got to play with Kim Hunsu when he was with the Phillies, possibly. But there's a few players that sprinkle in over here that are very talented. And I would say probably 2 or 3 players on each team have guys that could play in that AAA big league category. It's just the depth of the team is not as great as it is over here. So while your top line caliber guys are very good, very talented, if someone gets hurt, if a few guys get hurt, the guys that are replacing them probably aren't up to the level of players over here. So they work extremely hard, as from being over there yourself, and when you went to Japan, their work ethic is extraordinary, and so they're always working to get better. And I think the exposure they're going to get this year is going to be great for the league and the players, and they have a lot of really talented young players that hopefully people will be able to see and then eventually get over here and play.
Pat, one of the coolest things you've had a chance to do, and you've had a chance to do a lot of them, is play in the World Baseball Classic. Tell us how that all came about. How'd you get on Team Italy? And how did that go? How was your experience when you had a chance to do that?
Yeah, those are the tournaments that are the most fun. It's like the big leagues and more, even just because it's such a short sprint, and every game matters, every pitch matters. And I got on that team I was contacted in 2011 or 2012, somewhere back in there, by one of the general managers of one of the teams in Italy, who said he would help me obtain my citizenship, if the things worked out, to possibly be a part of that team. And, that kind of got the ball rolling. And then I went through all the citizenship process, ended up getting my Italian passport about a year later. Had to go through some different things, trace back all my family documents and all those things. But I played in my first classic with them in 13. Then I played with them in 17, and I'm looking forward to next year's classic. But on top of that, too, I'm able to play with them in all of the European championships and one-off tournaments that, the world doesn't find out about. And there's no major leaguers really playing in those tournaments. There's maybe a few sprinkled in, but that's really where I've had the most fun too, just playing with those guys who play year round in the Italian league. And, they're talented players, but all these guys have jobs that they work 9 to 5, and then baseball is their enjoyment, their second job almost. Like our left fielder was a gardener. He would wear gardener gloves rather than batting gloves to his at-bats. And, just stuff you can't make up, but these guys love the game, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? It looked like a lot of fun on TV. I had a chance to watch a lot of those games, and just the enthusiasm and the excitement and the passion that was displayed during those games. It was really, really something to look forward to watching. It was fun. So when did you say the next one is? Is it going to be next spring?
Next spring, yes.
And how many teams qualify then? Is it an 18 tournament, or is there more than that?
It was 12 for a while. I think next year they expanded it to 16 just because of the positive response they've gotten. And the way it works is if you won a game in the previous classic, you're automatically qualified for the next one. So we don't have to qualify. And I think there's a few spots still available, though. I don't think all the teams have qualified just yet.
Now, Darin, this is a question you got asked a lot. Who's the toughest pitcher besides Pat that you had to go up against? And then I want to hear about that. I think you guys went up against each other in the minor leagues, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
I'll let Pat tell me.
How did it go when you faced Pat in the minor league? Tell me, how many at-bats did you have against Pat?
I'll let Pat tell you how well he fared against me.
Okay.
I don't like to brag a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah, let's hear about these at-bats that you guys had against each other. That's really got to be a tough at-bat. You're in a competitive situation, and all of a sudden you're going up against a guy that's a really good friend of yours. That's got to be tough.
Yeah. You know what, Darin was, I was just trying to get him elevated to the next level. I was like, let's get this guy out of high A. Let's get him double A. I'm grateful for tall fences coach in the Florida State League, because Darin was just peppering the wall on me. I think the last 5 at-bats have all been doubles off the wall. And I've tried every pitch. But it's been a few years since I faced him. I've made up a couple different pitches since then, so I maybe have a different attack. But this goes back even to college, Coach. We had a bowling night one night in college to where
how come I didn't know about this bowling night? How come I didn't get invited, Pat?
Coach, there's a lot you didn't know about, Coach. Thankfully, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But no, we all went bowling, and I had gotten a little upset with Darin, and rightfully so. He had to go see his now wife Libby. They had a long distance relationship, and it was going to be a long season. He had to go see her one last time, but I had the entire team text Darin about not coming to bowling night, which was fine. I thought that was the end of it. But the next day we had live ABs in the batting cage, and I threw Darin a curveball, and we didn't have an L screen in front of me, and he smoked a line drive right off of my elbow. Remember that 4 days before we went to Washington State, and he almost took me out of the first weekend, but just a missile right off of me. And I've known since then that maybe Darin isn't my best hitter that I need to be facing.
Well, I don't know if Darin realizes it, but that's the reason why we never took live BP until about 2 years ago. So we shut down live BP for like 5 or 6 years because I didn't want to lose the pitcher. Because when you're indoors, you just don't see the ball as well when the ball comes off the bat, obviously, when you're pitching. Darin, you're the reason why our hitters are complaining all the time about not getting enough live ABs.
He didn't apologize either. He flipped the bat up and just walked away without apologizing.
I missed that one.
I was not happy with Pat.
Um, Pat, one other question, and this is one that you get asked a lot too, is how did this rule come about where when you go up against a switch hitter, now switch hitter is the guy that can hit from both sides, who came up with that rule that you had to decide what arm you were going to pitch with, and then the hitter could adjust based on what arm you were going to use?
Yeah, that rule goes all the way back to that my first outing in pro ball. Maybe some of the people have seen it on YouTube where me and the guy were switching back and forth, and it caused about a 5-minute delay. So the next day, I don't know how much thought they put into it, but they came down with a rule that said I had to declare first to keep the pace of the game going, and then switch hitters would have the opportunity to, go to the other side of the plate. So if I'm pitching right-handed, they'd be able to hit left-handed or vice versa. And that's just been the rule ever since. And you know what? I didn't really think about it at the time, but it would have been, a huge advantage for me if they would have reversed that, just because switch hitters probably since high school haven't seen a right on right breaking ball or a left on left breaking ball. And, the splits would tell you too that the switch hitters have a pretty distinct advantage over me because I do have to declare first. It was just one of those rules that, worked out the way it did. Didn't work in my favor, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, I've thought about it often how your game would have changed if they made the hitter establish what side he was going to hit from, and then you had the advantage if you could go left on left or right on right. So I found it interesting that they made you be the one that had to establish which arm you were going to use, and not put the onus on the hitter. I thought the hitter should be the guy that would have to do it, so the pitcher would have an advantage there.
Yeah,
pitchers already have too many advantages.
There he is.
They have cutters and sinkers, and they can throw 100. That's fine.
Yeah, but your baseball was harder last year. That's what the pitchers are saying, right? And the teams have been.
Every part too is shrinking the park too, so they can bring the fences in for these guys. They're doing everything to cater to these hitters. All they want to see is home runs.
Darin, a fact that a lot of people probably don't know about you was during your time at Creighton, you may be the only one in college baseball, I'm not sure, to be a 2-time Gold Glove winner. And everybody looks at baseball and they always look at the offense, and rightly so. I mean, it's what fans get excited about. But I walk into our building every day when the building's open. It's not open right now, but I walk into the building every day, and the first thing I see are the 4 Gold Gloves we have, and the 2 that you had during your time there, and how really special that is because they only give it to one first baseman out of the 300 Division I schools that are playing. So there's a lot of competition for that award. Sometimes these All-American awards, they have 4 or 5 different teams. They have 4 or 5 different publications. But with the Gold Glove, it's one Gold Glove winner for that position for that year, and that's a pretty big deal. And a lot of folks I don't know how much first base you played in high school, because in high school, what positions did you play a lot there?
Yeah, so I played my senior year. Coach Greco moved me over to first base because he could see that as I grew and worked out and came into my body that first base would be a position that I could play at the next level. So he had the foresight to see that, and then it's worked out since then.
Now, Pat, recruiting has changed so much now. You guys would be shocked at this recruiting stuff. Young people are deciding when they're 14 or 15 years old. Can you imagine that when you guys were 14 or 15 years old deciding to go to college? Pat, tell us a little bit about your recruiting situation because it was very unique. How you ended up at Creighton, because your story is a little different than Darin's, and anybody who's watching this that's in high school will probably be shocked at how late you made your decision and how it all came about.
Yeah, and my decision was a pretty easy one. Once you called and offered the preferred walk-on spot. That made my decision easy at the time. But up until then, it was a lot of visits to very small schools, Division II, NAIA, JUCOs. I had made my decision between Missouri Western and Midland Lutheran, and I thought that was the end of it because it was already, I think, June by the time you actually called. So I was going to go to one of those two places. And I think I had pitched the week before against Scott, and you were at the game because I had pitched against Joe. I had a good game, and I knew you were there too, but I didn't really think much of it. And I thought, as soon as you called, it was a no-brainer that I would be able to come and walk on. I think you had said that I'd have a spot on the team, but I'd have to earn a spot onto the travel roster. So that then became my goal. But there was no, fun visits for me or anything like that where I got to come on campus and do all the things that the kids got to do. But I was just, I was so grateful when it happened, and fortunately it all worked out.
Well, it tells you how much I knew. How much did you pitch your first year, Pat?
Well, I didn't pitch. I think I pitched 3 innings, but a lot of that was my own doing. I didn't, throw a lot of strikes, and it was really that sophomore year when I dropped down sidearm left-handed that things kind of clicked for me. It was literally that one little change where I started to feel comfortable, and I was able to develop that slider, and that's when I was able to help you guys out.
Now, Darin, your recruiting process was a little bit different. When did you make your decision?
So
was it all of your senior year?
Yeah, it was fall of my senior year. So it was in the middle of football season, and you had made me an awesome offer months earlier. And I just kind of sat on it, didn't really make a decision.
Could have went a little faster, Darin.
I know you called me and said, I'm going to need to take your scholarship away if you don't decide by tomorrow. So I think I called you like 10 minutes after that call, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll come to Creighton. But yeah, it was a nice little kick in the butt to make me make a decision. A great decision.
Man, it's recruiting is a lot different now, guys. It's a lot different. Kids are making decisions like I said before, at the ages of 14 and 15. So, well, I appreciate your time, fellas. I know it's nice to be home with your families, and I know you're working out in preparation for your seasons. And I certainly hope that you guys get back on a diamond here in June sometime. I'm optimistic that baseball will be back in July. I don't have any inside information. I'm just hoping like crazy, like the rest of us are, that you guys are doing what you love to do. We appreciate everything you did for us while you were here as players. You really represented the university the right way. Not only were you outstanding players, but both of you got your degrees before you went on to play professionally. You are major contributors to a lot of successful teams during your time, and you did things right. And I think that's important. I think sometimes we get so hung up on what we see on the field, and we forget that there's more to you guys than baseball players. You guys are excellent students. When your playing days are done, you guys are going to continue to be successful in whatever you do. So I wish you the best. Thanks again. Take care of your families. Congratulations, Darin, on your new one. Pat, I'm glad Erin, your wife, is feeling great. Sounds like she's doing great. If there's ever anything we can do for you as a university or myself as your old-time former coach, don't hesitate to reach out. We're following you from afar. There's not too many days that go by. It's a little harder for me to follow you there the last couple of years, but I look forward to you playing in the States. There's not too many days that go by that I don't check on your results and how you're doing, and so best of luck. Thanks again, and try to enjoy the next couple of weeks because I got a feeling you'll be real busy come the middle of June. Okay, guys?
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. It was great doing this.